Welcome back, everyone. Michael here with Offshore Citizen. Today we're going to talk about the easiest country to open an offshore bank account in 2020. So stay tuned. If you have not already subscribed, please smash, destroy, obliterate, attack the subscribe button, and click the notification bell to be updated of any future videos. We try and share them several times a week. Lots of good information, and look forward to hearing you as participating in that with us. So, okay. Best places to open an offshore, or easiest rather, places to open an offshore bank account in 2020. This is a little bit of a tricky question because you can get into nuances of, okay, where are you from, where is your business from, etc. But there's one country that for a variety of reasons has come to stand out as the easiest place going for opening an offshore bank account. And what I mean by this is that not only is it super easy, you can often get an account very quickly, you can go through KYC easily, etc. You can do it remotely, you can do it potentially for crypto businesses, you can do it, virtually almost every scenario that would be hard to do can be achieved in this, and achieved relatively easily is Lithuania. Okay, so what's happened in Lithuania? There's something called EMIs, electronic money institutions, which are essentially virtual banks that are providing a digital layer on top of an actual bank, typically the Central Bank of Lithuania in this case, okay? What does that mean? What that means is that your funds are stored in a normal bank, right? But that they are sort of custodied, managed, etc. by a electronic money institution, okay? So it's highly regulated and all this kind of stuff, okay, great. But the digital front end, the experience that you have, the fee structure, etc., is all negotiated through some other company. And this has become very popular in Lithuania. Why? Because getting electronic money institution licenses in Lithuania is super cheap. Okay, so it's quite cheap and easy to set up. Now, the reality is the trend in the world today is there are a lot more digital financial institutions opening up, and there will continue to be. And there's a few different reasons for that. One is the regulatory environment has become much easier. They've introduced a lot more competition by bringing in these electronic money institutions. Second of all, because the regulatory stack is more or less being built into services and can kind of be outsourced. So if you're familiar at all with the way that technology development works, you often have microservices that are built, and then you can pay to have access to those microservices for your application, so you don't have to build everything yourself. They've kind of done the same thing here, where they've built regulation as a service. And so companies will come in and they say, oh, AML, KYC checks, no problems. We can provide you that as a service. We're going to charge you X dollars per instance, and you don't have to have your own AML team. Perfect. That was really easy, right? And there's this whole stack of regulatory pieces that have all been bundled up into these little microservices you can plug in. And so it allows you to start a financial institution like that really quickly and easily. The capital requirements required for these are typically a lot lower, so that's another thing. And then the last part is the technology is more or less the same as what I mentioned before. You can white label bank software essentially, so you don't have to go and develop it all yourself. You don't have to go through the difficult process of maybe obtaining compliance and validation, because it's already been done by someone and you're just taking their software and putting it as an overlay on top of theirs. There's of course some restrictions on that and flexibility, etc. But that's pretty useful. Now, generally speaking, when we're talking about those types of institutions, often there's limitations in terms of what currencies they can accept. Typically, we're talking about euros. Often the payment networks you can access, maybe you can't access SWIFT, maybe you can only access SEPA, things like that. You may not have access to Visa and MasterCard. Certainly not from the perspective of being able to easily issue cards. Again, that's something that people are white labeling and offering out. So, you're building these institutions that they just bring all this stuff together and then they put a marketing layer on the front, right? So the bottom line of that is, look, if you're in a situation today where you have a tough to crack case, or you need to open an account quickly, etc., the easiest place to go is Lithuania. Now, do I recommend you put a lot of money there? No, typically I do not. Typically I think it's a bad idea. I don't really trust it. There's a bunch of reasons that I don't trust it. What you're going to notice is that when things are too easy, this is a ticking time bomb for some sort of AML issue, some sort of compliance issue, which is going to result in having things shut down. And we've seen this. Who was it recently? Anyway, there have been a couple of them over the last couple of years or whatever that I've seen, where they haven't necessarily gone under, but they've kind of had a big issue where all of a sudden their services are shut down and they have to go through kind of a tweaking everything to get themselves properly sorted out, etc., and kind of going from there. So my general recommendation with those institutions is they can be very useful for certain use cases. I would not use a lot of money there. I certainly wouldn't want to keep tens of millions of dollars in those accounts. In fact, I wouldn't keep 7 figures in there personally. Generally, I think they're good for when you're doing transactional banking in and out, if you can keep the fees low. Now, this is the next thing that's a problem, is very often the fees are quite high on these. Sometimes you're paying a percentage of a wire, and if you're doing large wires, it's not really very cost effective. But if you're talking about just small transactions as something that you're navigating elsewhere, I think it's a reasonably decent option. So anyway, that, for what it's worth, is kind of the place that I would look. I would look there over someplace like Belize. The reasons for that, so if we look at Belize, we look at Nevis, a bunch of the banks that I call shit banks that I tell you just don't go there. Why would I go and look at, say, Lithuania first? Well, first of all, because those are typically dependent on correspondent banking relationships that they're going to be in grave danger of losing, okay? And so you have a little bit more stability in terms of if you're operating in euros and you're doing a SEPA, etc. That's going to give you a little bit more stability in terms of the likelihood that they can lose that stuff, and also the degree of compliance that you have to go through. Now, the compliance is a double-edged sword, right? The compliance, on the one hand, can be a pain in the ass. On the other hand, it also protects you from having a bunch of bad actors in there who it kind of tends to corrupt the profit incentives of the or institution, and then ultimately results in kind of an implosion or explosion, depending on how you want to look at it. So from that standpoint, you have an advantage there. Second of all, generally the technology that they're using is better. It's just kind of a more modern experience, and so that can also be fairly useful. I also find that the quality of service that you're going to get is generally higher. There's just kind of this Caribbean, what would I call it? Like a Caribbean kind of work culture that tends to result in fairly low, inaccessible customer service as compared with what you can get with some of these. Now, be aware, there's like, I don't know, a couple hundred of them. There's a lot of these different institutions, right? So, they are not all equal by any stretch. Some are better than others, some are far worse, and so you want to kind of try and pick the best ones. But generally speaking, you have some good opportunities to be able to make things work out in that regard. So I hope that helps. That gives you some idea. Please, if you enjoyed the video, click the like button, subscribe, click the notification bell. You get updated. If you would like some assistance with setting up bank accounts, etc., reach out to us. You can book a call with me at clarity.fm/Michael Rosmer, which is in the link below. You can also go and check out our websites, offshorecitizen.net, offshorecapitalist.com. Anything to do with, international tax structuring, asset protection, payment processing, high-risk merchant accounts, residencies, citizenships, etc. Reach out to us. I will see you guys on the next video.